Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the music education department at Berkeley College of Music. And I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today, you'll meet our next guest host, Carly Riegger. Riegger is a chronically ill and disabled artist, writer, curator, and advocate from Ann Arbor, Michigan. They utilize porcelain and installation artworks to express inner feelings and narratives of disability. Riegger has organized several important exhibitions for artists with disabilities through the National Council on Education for the Ceramic Arts, including Crip Clay in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2023, and Outpour in Detroit, Michigan in 2026. Riegger is also the recipient of the 2024 Midwest Artists with Disabilities Award. They hold an MA in Disability Studies from the City University of New York and are currently pursuing an MFA in Studio Art from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Both Riegger's artwork and career goals involve disability inclusion and rights. They are working to expand how the arts communities work with artists with disabilities and how the disability communities utilize art to express complex disabled ideas. Welcome, Car. We are delighted to have you as the next guest host of the Able Voices podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. So let's start off by hearing your story as an artist. How did you get your start as an artist, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I always was kind of an artsy kid, and I happened to have like a really itty bitty ceramics class in my high school. And so suddenly I just like kind of tried that, and I fell in love with clay and working with art, and especially 3D art. And at the same time, I was also going through diagnosis and trying to figure out what was wrong with my chronic pain and things like that. And so they kind of like merged together pretty naturally. So looking back, that was kind of cool. At the time, it was stressful and lots of anxiety.
Sure.
That's like kind of my origin story. And since then, I just have been seeking any and every opportunity to keep using clay.
So, two questions come to my mind. First of all, you were always an artsy kid. What did that look like?
That's a good question. I was always like either dancing or, participating in like extracurricular kind of things revolving around the arts. I did a little bit of choir and things like that too. And I was like kind of, I think, trying like all these different things, instruments and everything else to find like what felt right to me. And it didn't happen until I had found clay.
And that leads to my next question. What is it about clay that just was like, this is it?
Yeah, I think part of it was like I had such a huge focus in visual arts. Once I got to the visual arts kind of classes, I was like, yeah, this feels right, but like not quite right. And it was just because there's such a focus on 2D art and painting. And I like painting, but my brain makes sense of the world physically, especially as a disabled person. And so the three-dimensional part of it 100% was like a huge thing. And then the other part is just how intuitive it is to work with clay and how similar I feel like I connect my body to clay in a way that other mediums just don't offer.
Wow, I love that. That must have been the most amazing feeling when you discovered, like, this is my home, right?
It really was, yeah. And thankfully, I had like one of the most encouraging teachers, and he really was like, and I made like a piece that was like taller than me, kind of a thing. And he like encouraged that and like was so excited for me. And so he also kind of inspired me then to become a teacher for ceramics.
Wow. Okay. Because of that, and you segued me too easily, I'm going to skip a question and hit there first. Talk to
Okay.
us a little bit about your arts education. I mean, you're in the middle of it now. and your work as
Yeah.
a teacher as well?
Yeah, so I have basically sought out a lot of university and college for ceramics because a lot of kilns and the things to really fully get into clay are really expensive, and so
Yes.
universities are the center of that. There are some community spaces, especially once I'm out of MFA, that I'd like to explore, but I also really, again, like teaching, and so that kind of has made sense for me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so like huge kilns, there's different firing methods, like all of those are through the university. So I did a BFA first. I knew I wanted that. And then I took some time in between, and there's a thing that I know some areas have, but ceramics is really big on postbacks. And
Ah,
so you go and do like 1 credit of ceramics just to get access to clay. And so I did that actually between, and I was in Louisville, Kentucky for a while. So I was doing that for like 3 years. And then I built up my portfolio to do an MFA. And all through that, there can be some things that are accommodating about universities, and there can also be some struggles. And so while I was making my work, I was usually fighting with someone about parking or some other kind of thing. So kind
yeah.
of like doing my advocacy where I go.
And it weaves together. And that you just
Yeah.
gave me the segue to the next question, which is, as a person with a disability and an artist, can you talk about your experience from that perspective?
Yeah, so the universities are, I kind of mentioned before, like both like more accommodating than the world around it, but then also like have lots of problems still. And
Yes.
so I have found those spaces, and especially as I go into teaching, like those spaces are more accessible to me, like um especially chunking my day with classes and things like that instead of like a typical 9 to 5, even though I'd, be teaching at a university still. So the one of the bigger barriers has been parking, even though like I had to fight originally to get like a disabled parking placard. And then
Gosh.
for some reason it's still a huge problem, and they'll make you pay a lot um on
So
top
then it
of like.
becomes a monetary barrier also. That's absurd.
Yes, monetary barrier has actually been one of the bigger issues, and it's not just like a few $100s, it's like $900.
Whoa.
So it's
Yeah, no.
puzzling, and for some reason accommodations sometimes, like because the transportation department is separate, like they can't really do a whole lot. And so I'm
Mm,
like, yeah, I'm a lot of it is trying to decide how much time and energy I want to waste on something like this
good point.
versus like also I was fighting for it for a while, and then I kind of fought for myself to get a parking pass. But then after me, another student in the MFA program came in and has a disability also, and then was struggling to get a parking pass. And then was kind of thinking to myself, oh, like I didn't work hard enough because it only impacted me. It didn't, impact the wider like community if there are more people coming in. So that's kind of also the struggle, is like fighting for myself, but I also want it to be bigger than that.
And is it, what kind of energy do you want to put to that fight? Do you want to put the energy into, dealing with these offices and these policies that are absolutely awful? And or you're making art, right? And
Yeah.
you are advocating and bringing things together in your art in ways that help lots of other people understand things they wouldn't otherwise understand. And maybe on a certain level, how do you divide your energy between those two, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of always and still asking myself that. And yeah, because I feel a fire and a drive to kind of like put up with the people making these policies and sit down and like talk with them. But at the same time, yeah, it is already hard to be working in a physical media while having physical like chronic illness things.
Yes.
So
Yeah, lots going on there. I want to tack back to something you brought up earlier. So, when you had that awesome high school teacher, And I just have this image of this huge clay structure piece. I just can't even imagine. And all that encouragement, and you were sort of finding your artistic home
Hmm.
beautifully. You said that was also at the same time that you were dealing with diagnosis.
Yeah.
So, yes, a lot's happening. Can you take us inside what that was like for you dealing with both of those things at the same time?
Yeah, it one thing that I look back on a lot is my mom joining and advocating during those appointments. And once I was kind of also like becoming an adult, or like right before, like feeling like I was an adult. And so then I was like, "Mom, I don't want you to join me." And it was good for me, but at the same time, I faced like a lot of scrutiny. And that my mom just sat there and was like, "No, you're going to listen." It's just so much easier for her to sit there and do that versus me going in and feeling intimidated by a doctor. So really, I feel like that was really important. And then a lot of the day to day was just kind of running around to different appointments, but then, really loving that time that I got in the studio and trying to make the most of it.
It was like the perfect antidote to all other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, my mind would be quiet. Like it felt right in a lot of ways.
Beautifully
Um
put. Yeah.
yeah, and that one piece that I built was like a really giant like spine and rib cage piece. And that's kind of how I started working with the body in clay with my body.
Oh man, beautiful. Totally amazing. And the level of authenticity there, right? Huge, huge.
Yeah.
Only art lets us do this.
Right. And I wasn't really able to comprehend or talk about, like, the words weren't there for how that experience felt, and so I just put it, like, directly into the art.
Unbelievable. So, what advice would you give to an artist who has a disability?
Yeah, I think a lot about networking, in that just social media is just such a benefit that I mostly use it to find other disabled artists
Sure.
because we're kind of scattered around, it feels like. And how I feel like I really found my community and people who felt like me and people with the same diagnosis was through those small online communities. And so I've actually, because I've just randomly been like, "Oh my gosh, hey, I love your art. Like you're so cool." I've like created opportunities like through that, in that like I've found people that I want to like curate shows with, and we've like done that, and connections that like actually last like really long. Like people are way more open, I feel like, than it might seem to just like chatting on social media, especially disabled artists, I feel like. We're always trying to find each other. And then, I mean, I think some people really benefit from the university setting and other people don't. So that kind of is finding your space that makes sense, and also like whatever media like you're going into. So I recommend like pursuing like university things, but there's so many like community spaces that you can apply for residencies and other things, that I think in some ways might feel more supportive because you're like literally a part of a community space instead of
Right.
like paying to be at a university or something like that. So yeah, I think online communities really like fueled my love like for the community and how I
Mm.
think about my work. Yeah.
That's great advice. And so many people are on their own to have a real sense of community like that, I think
Yeah.
is really important. So can you talk about your current projects? What are you working on today?
Yeah, so I'm still very, very based in clay. And most recently, I feel like porcelain has made sense with how delicate and sensitive of a material it is. It feels really similar to my body, more than even other clays. So I'm working a lot with porcelain, but then I'm also kind of expanding to some other things. I've been working with kind of experimental video
Huh.
and pillow foam, especially. I'm
Help me
talking a lot.
understand what that is.
Yeah, so like I'm talking a lot about my relationship as with my bed as a chronically ill person. And
Yeah,
so foam is just such a like thing that like shapes your body. And so you can buy like it's kind of like resin. You get a two-part thing and it foams up instead of just setting.
got it.
So I work a lot with molds anyway, and so I've been kind of using those in my molds.
Very cool.
So yeah, I've been kind of like slowly theorizing like how I feel material and physical objects represent my body, and also like how we think about like ableism as well, and how we like look at the body.
Absolutely. The different lenses that are used to look at the body. You're going to make sure that we have links in the show notes so that people can see your pieces.
Yes, of
Yes.
course. Yes, yes.
Awesome. And speaking of links, how can people follow you and your work online?
The biggest one I use is Instagram, and so that's under my full name at Carly Riegger.
Spell it for people because I want to make sure people get it.
Yeah, at CarlyGegger.
Awesome.
And then I have a website as well that kind of displays the images a little nicer than Instagram does sometimes, and it's my full name again, same thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking this time to speak with us today. It's a pleasure to hear all about your work and your story. I'm still picturing that big spinal rib cage piece in my mind's eye and thinking about what that must have meant for you to do when you were just a teenager. So thank you for
Yeah.
all that you shared with us today. And we are really looking forward to our upcoming episodes where you will be our guest host.
Yes, thank you so much.
Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berkeley.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berkeley, that's LEE.edu.